Hey guys, this is Nick and welcome to my Linux experiment. So, I have never tried a Cinnamon desktop environment before, and with the recent release of Linux Mint 19.1, there's no more excuse. So in this video, I'll give my opinion on this new release, and I might follow it up with more videos on using Cinnamon and my experience with it. So let's start with this review. Linux Mint. Linux Mint is a derivative of Ubuntu. It started in 2006 and was based on Kubuntu at the time using the K desktop environment. It quickly moved on to using the regular Ubuntu as a base and used GNOME too. In 2011, with the release of GNOME 3 and the controversy surrounding it, Linux Mint decided to develop its own desktop environment called Cinnamon. It's based on the GTK3 library and aims to present a more familiar interface to its users with less drastic changes than GNOME 3. The latest version, Linux Mint 19.1, codenamed Tessa, was released the 19th of December 2018, so I'm a bit late to the party. Installation. The installer is Ubuntu's default one, which is to say it's speedy, legible, and reliable. It is getting a bit long in the tooth though, and it lacks the flair of Deepin's installer, or even the one shipped with Pop! OS or Fedora. What's new in 19.1? For users of earlier versions of Linux Mint Cinnamon, Tessa comes with a lot of improvements. There is a new choice right in the welcome screen to switch between the older layout used in Cinnamon, resembling Windows XP with a simple window list, and the modern layout, resembling Windows 7 or Windows 10 with grouped windows, a smaller system tray, and icons only in the taskbar. You can also configure this panel more precisely. You can define an icon size for each of the panel's main features, so you can tweak the respective sizes of application icons and the system tray icons to your liking. The panel is divided into 3 spaces, and each of these ones can be configured independently. Nemo, the file manager, has been optimized to be faster and lighter. I can't attest to that since I never used it in the past, but in my experience it did feel fast and I didn't experience any slowdowns. It also now has better options to arrange and sort icons on the desktop with a revamped settings panel. Nemo can show a folder's creation date on supported file systems such as ext4, and it can be configured to show thumbnails on a directory basis. This means you can display thumbnails in your pictures folder, but not in your documents folder, for example. In the update manager, you can now look at all older versions of your Linux kernels, and remove them if you wish. Each kernel will display its support status, so you can remove obsolete and unsupported ones. The software sources also has received a new look. It looks cleaner and more simple to use. It also has a new button to remove duplicate entries in your sources.list folder, right through the maintenance tab. Other improvements include the ability to configure your firewall in the welcome screen, the addition of asterisk when you type your password as sudo, and brand new wallpapers. The default theme has also been enhanced with more contrast to make the text darker and more legible against the grey background, with darker icons as well. The Mint Y, Mint Y Dark and Mint Y Darker themes have also been made available with more colors for people like me who are not big fans of green. You can now select a blue, brown, grey, orange, pink, purple, red, sand, teal or aqua color. This is a lot of choice and this should please a lot of people. So what if you're discovering Linux Mint like me? Well, let's take a look at what the distro has to offer. The welcome screen. Mint Cinnamon ships with a great welcome screen. It allows you to access simple first steps such as choosing your graphics drivers, update your system, change the desktop layout, activate automatic backups with time shift, tweak the settings, look for apps to install, or even enable the firewall. It's a good first experience that puts the basic first things everyone does after installing a system right in front of the users. It also has a link to the online documentation for anyone who needs help. Default software. Linux Mint 19.1 ships with a lot of software by default. It uses the Firefox 64 browser as default, which is great, but sticks to the Yahoo search, which is a shame. Other notable applications include LibreOffice 6, the GIMP for image manipulation, but unfortunately it ships in version 2.8. When version 2.10 brings so many improvements to the table, it's basically ridiculous not to ship it at this point. Mint also includes VLC, as well as another media player, which is pretty baffling, since that media player offers you to automatically download and install codecs as needed, so why not pick one or the other? Thunderbird 60 is here too, as well as Hex Chat for chatting on IRC. This is an odd choice as well. I don't think many Linux newcomers, and I think these are the principal target of Linux Mint, I don't think these guys will know about or use IRC, so including this by default is a bit weird, but it's lightweight and doesn't use much space, so it's not a big deal. You also get Tomboy for note-taking and Transmission for torrenting, which are both good choices as well. In general, Mint ships with, in my opinion, too many software choices. You've got 2 media players, an IRC client, 2 photo viewers, and an outdated GIMP. This is not a real problem since you can uninstall anything you want, and some people might argue that having more software out of the box is a good thing. But I got used to minimalistic software distributions on which you pick the software you want to add, and Mint goes a bit overboard for me. Look and feel. This is very personal, but I don't really like the color green, so Mint doesn't appeal to me by default. It does look stylish and professional though, with its window-style taskbar and a very handy menu sorted by categories and a dark panel and wallpaper by default. Usability is good, with familiar reflexes being kept here and an intuitive layout being used. I found dragging windows around to be kind of a pain though, since you can't drag some apps with their toolbars. You have to drag the title bar, which is hard to locate since the theme blends them in a single color. Other apps, probably the default GNOME applications, can be dragged just fine. You can also change the theme by default, just by hopping in the preferences. Mint actually lets you change the window borders, the icons, the controls, the pointer, and the desktop individually, so you will find a combination that works for you. You can of course install new themes directly from the settings, which is a fantastic touch. There is a good library of themes you can get, even though they do seem to only affect window borders, controls and the desktop, and not the icons or mouse pointers. And since Mint 19.1 ships with a lot more color options than before, I think you'll find something that suits you. Mint looks good enough and feels nice to use with subtle animations you can tweak and a lot of customization options. You can even switch the window controls position, customize the way the Alt-Tab task switcher looks and works. Mint is a welcoming system, and its configuration options mean that if something is not to your liking, you can likely change it. Performance. By default, Mint uses about 1.5 GB of RAM on my system, which is okay. CPU consumption is on the lower side of other distros I used, and it uses around 8 GB of disk space, which is high but probably due to its default software compilation. Windows open quickly, even under load, and the menus and panels are responsive and animations are smooth. In general, Mint might not be a lightweight distro, but it's speedy enough for day-to-day use on a half-decent computer. Configuration options. Now let's get back to the configuration options, because this is important. Mint Cinnamon has a lot of them. By default, it looks very simple and easy to use, much like a tweaked GNOME 3. But once you access the preferences, you'll be looking at a depth of options pretty much unmatched in the GTK world. KDE might still have a bit more choice, but to be honest, at this level it doesn't really matter anymore. Cinnamon will let you change about everything. From the panel size, position or applet placement, to the themes, the window controls, the hot corners, the window behavior or tiling, the workspaces, the Alt-Tab switcher, the animations, everything can be changed and customized to get a result you'll like. The customization is easier to me than KDE's options. Everything is easier to find and use, especially on the applet and panel side of things. Cinnamon even has desklets, sorts of widgets you can add to your desktop, the equivalent of KDE's plasmoids. You can download new ones through an online library and install them with a single click. If you're still feeling limited after all that, Cinnamon also supports extensions, just like GNOME Shell, except these extensions are enabled by default. They include making panels transparent, adding a desktop queue for switching between virtual desktops, adding the wobbly windows back from the Compies days, or blurring the background when in overview mode. All in all, Cinnamon might be the closest to KDE level of tweaking you can get on a GTK desktop environment, but it still manages to look simple and accessible. I think Cinnamon hits the perfect balance between configurability and simplicity and legibility. To conclude this review, Linux Mint Cinnamon 19.1 is a very full-featured, stable and performant distribution. Any Mint user should definitely upgrade to it, and users looking for desktop customization and allergic to KDE should give it a spin. Cinnamon might very well be the best GTK desktop out there, and Mint showcases it perfectly. I know I'll keep it on my hard drive to make some more videos about Cinnamon. If you enjoyed, please consider liking, subscribing, and turning on notifications. You can also follow me on Twitter at TheLinuxEXP. Thank you guys for watching, and goodbye.